Welcome back to the Blitz here on 94.1 San Antonio Sports Star. He's Joe Reinagle. I'm Jason Minix. Our AA Best Bail Bonds Radio Row coverage continues. Brought to you by Synergenics and Southern Recipe Small Batch Pork Rinds, which is appropriate because we're going to talk some football and pigskin, some pigskin and pigskins right now. The great Steve Largent, Hall of Famer, and Mark Singleton from Southern Recipe Small Batch Pork Rinds joining us here on Radio Row. I know, Steve, come to Radio Rows, you've got the gold jacket,
yes,
which is awesome to see in person, by the way. When you put that thing on in the morning and you're walking around football stuff, you get to do whatever you want, right? That's what that gold jacket means?
I try to tell my wife that, but it doesn't work so far. I don't know what I'm doing wrong.
She doesn't appreciate the gold jacket, huh?
No, she really doesn't.
I get that. I understand that. It is, the gold jacket, though, when you guys walk around here and we see the Hall of Famers, it's just you guys are like royalty. You really are. You're football royalty, and it's just an honor to see all of you.
Well, thank you. It really is an honor to be in the Hall of Fame, and there's a special bond that you have with your teammates that you played 14 years with, but there's also something special about being with Hall of Famers and just respecting what they've done. And there's just a fellowship that you have with those guys that are in the Hall with you that goes unspoken.
Steve Largent, most famous with the Seattle Seahawks, although a little time in Houston with the Houston
I had
Oilers.
A cup of coffee in Houston.
A cup of coffee.
Yeah.
And, Joe's a longtime Oiler fan. And, how did you get out of Houston? How did the Oilers let a future Hall of Famer have a cup of coffee and bolt?
You'll have to ask Bum Phillips that question. But, he was in his second year, and he needed some receivers. And so they drafted me in the fourth round. It was their second pick, but I was drafted in the fourth round. And I went down there, and I thought I was going to make the team. I was the second draft choice that they had. And so I thought, I've got it made. But I didn't really I never performed in a way that said, I think I'm better than everybody else here. I didn't do that. But, I just didn't ever catch on to what they were trying to do. And Dan Pastorini was a quarterback there. He's a good quarterback. But I just didn't connect with him. And so Bum called me into his office and said, Steve, we're going to let you go, give you a chance with another team. There's 2 more preseason games. There were 6 then. And so I was let go. And after he said, we're going to let you go, all I heard was blah, 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 blah. And I was thinking, man, I'm glad I got my college degree. So I packed up the stuff that I had in my old brown Pinto station wagon and drove back from Houston to Oklahoma City, where my wife was staying with her parents. And I was going to contemplate what I was going to do with the rest of my life. And about that time, I'd gotten back to Oklahoma City. I got a call from the Seattle Seahawks. And what happened was they had hired Jerry Rome, who was my coach at Tulsa. And he was the offensive coordinator, and he was also the quarterback and receiver coach. And so Jerry was trying to get him to draft me, and they never did. And so when I came up on the waiver wire, they said, "Okay, we'll get him now and see what he can do." So they traded an 8th round draft choice for me. They don't have an 8 rounds.
8th round draft.
Yeah,
think about that for a minute for those kids listening right now.
Exactly. So anyway, I went up to Seattle, and what Jerry had done, unbeknownst to me, was he had installed our entire passing game into the Seahawks game plan. So when they said, I write, 79 on the route, how far I need them to split, how when the quarterback was going to deliver the ball, I'd been doing it for 3 years. So that was a real boost to my football career. I'm not sure I would have made it with any other team but the Seahawks, and I did, and was able to play 14 years, and it was awesome.
And you've got a gold jacket to prove it too. That's good. You bring up an interesting thing, Steve, when you talk about you just didn't get what the Oilers were doing. And we talk all the time about systems and how players thrive in certain systems. Is that the case? There's some systems that are just better for some players than others?
Well, there are systems that are easier for some players to learn than others, and that was the case for me in Houston. I just couldn't pick up on what they were trying to do. I just didn't get it, and it was obvious, I guess, to Bum Phillips and the rest of the coaches. So they let me go. But I think there is something to getting players that you feel like can merge with your team better than others are. And I was just one of those guys that I didn't merge very well with the Oilers.
Hall of Famer Steve Largent joining us here on the Blitz. My wife is from Seattle. And of all the people we get to talk to, every year on Radio Row, she's always, you're going to talk to Steve Largent again, aren't you? When you go back to Seattle, royal treatment all the way, right?
Well, for people who recognize me while I'm walking around the mall or
the gold jacket helps, right?
Well, and I wave it too. I wave it around my head. But no, for people who recognize me, then they're always friendly, nice, want to take a picture, and so it's a special relationship that I have with the people in Seattle.
Steve, I've got to ask you because I'm kind of an old school football guy, and when you played it, that was football. I can only imagine the numbers you would put up in today's game.
Yeah.
With the way the defense is kind of penalized.
Right. Yeah, I think so. I think that I would do well today too, because I love throwing the ball, love catching the ball. But and that's what I was going to say. I love the game more today than when I played because they're throwing it so much more, and that's the part of the game that I love.
Interesting.
When you think about watching football today, do you watch more of what the receivers are doing or the quarterbacks?
Well, the way that they telecast games, you can only watch the quarterback. You can't see the receiver and what he's doing. Every now and then they'll play back what the receiver did or where he lined up or where he ended up, but you don't see the intricacy of routes.
When you see, we have this debate all the time, quarterback throws an interception. Is that, in your mind, on the quarterback or receivers not running the right route properly on a timing route? I mean, what all goes into that from your perspective? Hall of Fame wide receiver.
I would say yes to that question. Meaning
you're a politician, aren't you, sir?
Well, meaning that sometimes it's the quarterback's fault, sometimes it's the receiver's fault. Sometimes it's a receiver you're not even throwing to. He didn't run the right route so that he could get the other receiver open. So it's different for different teams and different plays. So I don't think you can ever blame it on any one person until you've watched the film. Now, when the coach is watching the film and you're watching it with him on Mondays, he's going to point out who was wrong, and so you'll know very quickly if you were in the wrong on that particular play. But watching on TV, you can never find out who was wrong.
Steve, I've got to ask you this because and we look at just say Patrick Mahomes and Travis Kelce. They seem to read each other's minds. Yeah. Is that a thing in the NFL? I mean, can you get on the same page as a quarterback like that?
I know I did with my quarterbacks, with Dave Craig, with Jim Zorn, especially on routes that broke down and then the quarterback had to scramble. I was always good at making myself available downfield for my quarterback who was scrambling, and that happens in the NFL as well today. When quarterbacks are scrambling, I watch receivers how they react to that, and some react well and make themselves an open target and catch the ball. Some guys aren't as good as separating from coverage, and that's what you have to have that separation from coverage, and that's what the game's all about. And unfortunately, you can't really watch that on TV because you can't see the whole route, and so, but. I don't know how they can fix that. I don't think they can. But it's an intricate game, and I think just have kind of an innate ability to read one another on those routes.
Who are your top 3 or 4 or 5 receivers that you just enjoy watching today?
Well, I have to say DK Metcalf first of all because
that's Seattle. That's on the list by contract, and he's a beast.
I mean, the guy is so big. He's 6'3", 6'4". He weighs 235 pounds, and he really is a beast. I mean, if he's not going to catch the ball, he's going to block somebody, and he's going to knock their heads off. And I just never played that way. I wasn't big enough to do that. He is, but. Yeah, I think he's an interesting receiver, and I think he's going to get better. That's the scary thing. But DK Metcalf, Tyler Lockett is another good receiver for the Seahawks. But every team has a Tyler Lockett. Every team has a DK Metcalf. Well, maybe not DK, but everybody has somebody like him on their team because they throw the ball so much. You wonder where'd the running backs go? There's not many teams that have 2 great running backs, much less 1 running back. So the game has evolved to a much more pass conscious game.
Yeah, there's no doubt. Were you surprised that Seattle let Pete Carroll go?
No, I was not, because I'd heard rumors about what could happen in the offseason if they weren't in the playoffs. And, Pete's coached for 14 years or something like that, and he 14 years at Seattle, and he was a great coach, still is a great coach, and they've kind of let him down easy, and I think they're paying him some amount of money. I don't know what it is, but it's a lot to stay with the team for another year, and I really like Mike MacDonald. I think he's going to do a great job. I like the fact that he's 36 years old, has a lot of energy. I like the fact that he is a defensive conscious coach, and he will be. And so I think that they've made a great selection of Mike MacDonald.
Hall of Famer Steve Largent. Super Bowl Sunday is coming up, also known as Pork Rind Appreciation Day. What is your go-to on Pork Rind Appreciation Day?
That's a tough question. You might need to ask my compatriot here. They've got so many now.
Well,
so.
Mark Singleton from Southern Recipe Small Batch Pork Rinds, and they've got some here for us. Although Pasilla chili cheese is actually my favorite flavor. That's my favorite flavor of the pork rinds. But Mark, I mean, you guys created Pork Rind Appreciation Day. It was a no-brainer, but a brilliant idea.
You know, what goes better on the biggest pigskin holiday of the year than pigskins, Jason? I mean, oh my gosh. I will tell you, when we started coming 15 years ago, I made a wardrobe mistake at this event. I wore my camel blazer. And you will disappoint hundreds of people if you wear a camel blazer in this room.
Well, you're a Hall of Famer in our book.
It's been such a great partnership with Coach Dick and the Gridiron Greats. We've raised millions of dollars. We've helped hundreds and hundreds of players and their families who just kind of fell through the cracks. The latest CBA has provided some protection for us, but for the vast amount of time that the Gridiron Greats existed, there was actually no real safety net for these guys from a medical perspective. And Coach filled such a vital need. We saw that. We leaned into it with him. And we're so delighted to be here for our 15th year. We're so delighted with the partnership and so delighted to have such a great spokesman as Steve Largent.
Well, when you look at what you guys do and you see the results, this has got to make you extremely happy.
Football brings families together. That brings towns together. I love football. I love drill team. Y'all have heard me talk about this drill team band. All the families get together, and since we're a family-owned company, those relationships are so important. And this is a way of letting us be a part of the families in San Antonio. As you know, we've got a great partnership with HEB there, and one of the best pork rind markets in the country. So,
obviously, Mark Singleton, you've been on our show many times with different recipes, with different ideas of what to do, either having pork rinds as a snack or using them with a dip. What is your go-to then on Super Bowl Sunday, Pork Rind Appreciation Day?
Okay, so what we're going to be serving is I bought a bunch of oysters because it's an R month, and we're going to shuck oysters, and we're going to on our website at porkrinds.com and southernrecipe.com. We've got recipes for this. It's our Cholula lime butter grilled oysters with Cholula lime butter, chorizo, and then some crunched up hatch chili. Pork rinds on top. It's like an umami bomb. It's like a saltwater umami bomb.
Perfect.
Yes.
Perfect for sure. Mark Singleton with Southern Recipe Small Batch Pork Rinds. Hall of Famer Steve Largent. Appreciate you stopping by here on
guys.
Radio Row.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
AA Best Bail Bonds, big game coverage live from Las Vegas. Powered by Southern Recipe Small Batch Pork Rinds, Synergenics, and 94.1 San Antonio Sports Star.